In the lush village of Oron, nestled along the sparkling coastline of Akwa Ibom, King Hefyong reigned with wealth, wisdom, and undeniable pride. His wealth was matched only by the beauty of his daughter, Princess Imabong, whose fame spread far beyond Oron. Her radiant smile, smooth ebony skin, and bright eyes were the envy of every maiden and the desire of countless suitors. Imabong, however, was not one to be easily charmed. As her beauty blossomed, so did her pride. She would often sit in the palace courtyard, her voice echoing like a bell as she declared, "No man in honor is worthy of me. I will not waste my beauty on these ordinary fishermen and farmers. Only a prince, rich and noble, from a town far greater than this, can claim my heart."
Suitors from Oron and neighboring towns approached King Effiong with gifts of yams, goats, and gold, seeking the princess' hand. Yet the king, sharing in his daughter's arrogance, sent them away, proclaiming, "My daughter deserves the best. None of you meet the standard of her beauty or my legacy." Years passed, and while Imabong's beauty grew, so did her scorn for the men of Oron. Her words became sharper, her laughter louder, and her pride deeper. One day, a young man named Edem, known for his kindness and humility, decided to approach the princess. Edem was no prince, but his heart was noble, and his affection for Imabong had grown since they were children. Armed with courage, he stood before her in the courtyard. "Princess Imabong," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I have admired you for years, not just for your beauty, but for the kindness you used to show as a child. I know I am no prince, but my love for you is pure, and I promise to cherish you for all my days." Imabong looked at Edem with disbelief and disgust. Her laughter pierced the air like a cruel blade. "You, a mere fisherman's son? You think someone like you can ever deserve me?" Before Edem could respond, she stepped forward and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed, silenced the palace courtyard. "You are foolish to think I could ever stoop so low," she sneered. "Get out of my sight." Humiliated, Edem turned and walked away, his heart heavy but his spirit unbroken. Behind him, the villagers whispered, shaking their heads at the princess' cruelty. In the shadows of the courtyard, an old man who had been listening stepped forward. He was Eyo, the oldest elder known to speak in riddles. His voice was deep and commanding as he said, "Princess Imabong, your beauty is a gift, but your pride will be your downfall. Remember this, the hand you reject today may be the hand that saves you tomorrow." Imabong called, "Old man, your riddles do not frighten me. My beauty will ensure I have the life I deserve." Eyo shook his head and walked away, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Months passed, and life in Oron continued as usual, but whispers of Eyo's prophecy began to spread. Meanwhile, Imabong's pride only grew. She remained firm in her resolve. She would marry a prince or no one at all, Little did she know that our world was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Edem, humiliated but not defeated, decided it was time to leave Oron. He packed his belongings and set off for Ikotobong, a bustling town known for its thriving markets and skilled craftsmen. There, he apprenticed himself to a goldsmith, determined to master the trade. He toiled day and night, learning the art of crafting jewelry that sparkled like the stars. Over time, Edem's talent grew, and his name became known far and wide as a skilled artisan. Back in Oron, life moved on, but Princess Imabong's pride remained unchanged. While the maidens of her age married and bore children, their laughter echoing through the village, Imabong continued to turn her nose up at every suitor. Even as her father grew older and pleaded with her to consider marriage, she would reply, "I will not settle for less than a prince who can match my beauty and status. Let those village girls marry their common men. I am destined for greater things." Years passed, and though Imabong remained beautiful, whispers began to spread about her arrogance and her failure to marry. Many young men, once enchanted by her beauty, had long given up and moved on. One fateful day, Imabong fell ill with a mysterious sickness. It began as weakness in her limbs, and soon she could no longer walk with her usual poise and grace. Her once radiant skin grew pale, and her full figure dwindled until she was but a shadow of her former self. The villagers watched in shock as the proud princess, who once walked the street with her head high, was now carried on a simple mat, unable to support her own weight. Imabong, who had always prided herself as her beauty as no match, now avoided mirrors. Unable to bear the sight of her sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. King Effiong, desperate to save his daughter, summoned every healer, herbalist in the land. They came with roots and herbs, but none could cure her. They would shake their heads solemnly and say, "Her sickness is beyond our understanding." In her weakened state, Imabong began to see the world differently. She no longer laughed at the villagers or mocked their simplicity. Instead, she watched with envy as young mothers play with their children. Their joy untainted by pride, she began to realize that her arrogance had left her with nothing but loneliness and regrets. One evening, as the sun set over Oron, casting its golden glow on the village, Imabong lay in a bed, tears streaming down her face. "Is this my punishment for my pride?" she whispered to no one in particular. "Will I ever find peace or redemption?" Meanwhile, in Ikotobong, Edem, now a wealthy and respected goldsmith, heard of Imabong's plight from a traveling merchant. The story of the proud princess who had fallen from grace touched his heart. Though she had humiliated him, Edem couldn't ignore the love he once felt for her. "I must go back," he decided. "Perhaps there is something I can help with." As Edem prepared to return to Oron, the village buzzed with rumors of a mysterious visitor who might hold the key to the princess' healing. Little did they know, the man who once left in shame was now returning with newfound strength and purpose. Edem arrived in Oron late one evening, the sun casting long shadows over the village. He approached the palace and requested an audience with King Effiong. When the king saw the once humble young man now dressed in the fine robes and adorned with the confidence of success, he was taken aback. "Your Majesty," Edem said with a respectful bow, "I have heard of Princess Imabong's illness, and though she once caused me pain, I cannot turn away from someone in need. Allow me to see her." King Hefyong hesitated, but desperation over his daughter's condition left him with little choice. He led Edem to the chamber where Imabong lay. The sight of her struck Edem to his core. The vibrant and proud princess he had once admired was now frail, her once bright eyes dim with suffering. "Imabong," Edem said softly, kneeling beside her bed, "I came to see you." Imabong's eyes fluttered open. She stared at him for a moment, struggling to recognize the man she had mocked years ago. When realization dawned, tears welled up in her eyes. Why are you here?" she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't ignore your feeling and your suffering," Edem replied gently. "I know of someone who may be able to help. I promise I will do everything I can to find a cure for you." Imabong's lips trembled and tears rolled down her cheek. "I do not deserve your kindness. You deserve to live," Edem said firmly, "and I will not rest until I find a cure." Edem returned to Ikotobong. Determined to keep his promise, he spent days racking his brain, recalling every customer and conversation he had during his years as a goldsmith. Then he remembered a wealthy trader had once mentioned a healer named Malam Shehu, whose daughter had been cured of a similar illness. Edem wasted no time. He sought out the trader, who directed him to Malam Shehu's village in the far north. The journey was long and arduous, but Edem's determination carried him through blistering heat and unrelenting trust. When he finally reached Malam Shehu's compound, he was greeted by a kind but cautious man. Malam Shehu listened as Edem recounted Imabong's condition, his voice filled with urgency and hope. Malam Shehu nodded thoughtfully. "I have seen such a sickness before. It afflicted my own daughter, and she too wasted away, much like the princess you described. By the grace of God, I stumbled upon a herb deep in the forest of Ogbagi Akoko in Ondo State. It saved her life." Edem's heart surged with hope. "Please, Malam Shehu, will you help me find this herb?" Malam Shehu hesitated. "The journey is dangerous, and the forest is dense and treacherous, but I will guide you. No one should be left to suffer such a fate if it can be avoided." Edem clasped his hands in gratitude. "Thank you, Malam Shehu. You may not know it, but you are giving her a second chance at life." The next morning, the two men set off for Ogbagi Akoko. The journey was grueling, taking them through uncharted terrain, wide rivers, and dense forest, teeming with hidden dangers. But Edem's resolve never wavered, and Malam Shehu's knowledge of the land proved invaluable. As they neared the forest where the precious herb grew, Malam Shehu turned to Edem. "This is the place. The herb is rare and delicate. We must tread carefully and trust in our purpose." The forest of Ogbagi Akoko was unlike anything Edem had ever seen. The canopy above was so thick that only silvers of sunlight pierced through, casting hairy shadows on the dense underbrush. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and white flowers, and the sound of chirping insects and distant animals' calls filled the silence. Malam Shehu moved with precision, his sharp eyes scanning the ground for the precious herb. Edem followed closely, clutching a small pouch to carry the plant that could save Imabong's life. After hours of searching, Malam Shehu stopped abruptly and pointed to a patch of small delicate leaves growing near the base of a massive tree. "There it is," Malam Shehu said, his voice tinged with relief. Edem knelt beside the plant and examined it. The herb had vibrant green leaves with faint silver veins running through them, just as Malam Shehu had described. Together, they carefully harvested the plant, ensuring they took only what was needed. With the herb secured, Edem's heart swelled with hope. "We must leave at once and return to Oron," he said eagerly. Malam Shehu nodded, but as they turned to retrace their steps, they realized the dense forest had swallowed the path they had taken. Every tree and rock looked the same, and the landmarks Malam Shehu had relied on seemed to have vanished. "We must have taken a wrong turn," Malam Shehu said, a note of worry creeping into his voice. "The forest can be deceptive." Edem's resolve faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "We will find our way out. We have to." The two men wandered through the forest, trying to stay calm as the hours stretched on. They marked trees and left small piles of stones to avoid walking in circles. But the forest seemed endless. Night fell, and the air grew cold. They built a small fire to keep warm and protect themselves from wild animals. As they sat around the flickering flames, Malam Shehu spoke. "This forest tests the spirit as much as the body. We must not let fear consume us. The herb we carry is precious, and we must believe we will deliver it." Edem nodded, drawing strength from the older man's words. "I will not give up. Imabong's life depends on us." The next morning, they resumed their search for a way out. Hunger and exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but they pressed on, guided by Malam Shehu's intuition and Edem's unwavering determination. On the third day, they stumbled upon a small stream. This stream must lead to a larger body of water. Malam Shehu said with renewed hope, "If we follow it, we may find a way out of the forest." The two men followed the stream, their spirit lifting with each step. By the time the sun began to set, they emerged from the dense forest into an open field. In the distance, they saw a small village. Relief washed over them like a cool breeze. They entered the village and explained their ordeal to the elders, who provided them with food, water, and directions back to civilization. Edem and Malam Shehu rested for the night, grateful for the kindness of strangers. The next morning, they set out for Oron. The precious herb carefully stored in Edem's pouch. With each step closer to the village, Edem's heart raised with anticipation. He thought of Imabong, her frail figure lying in the palace, and he silently prayed that they had arrived in time. Edem returned to Oron with the precious herb, his heart pounding with both hope and anxiety. He handed carefully prepared remedy to the palace herbalist, who administered it to Imabong under Malam Shehu's guidance. The princess' recovery was slow but steady. Within a week, she could sit up in bed. Her cheeks began to regain color, and her frail body started to recover its strength. The palace erupted in celebration. King Hefyong, overwhelmed with gratitude, summoned Edem to the royal hall. The king embraced him like a son, his eyes glistening with tears. "You have done what no one else could," the king said. "You saved my daughter's life, and for that, you have my eternal gratitude. I promised myself that whoever saved Imabong would have her hand in marriage. But more than that, since I have no son, I declare that you will be my successor when my time comes. Oron will be yours to rule." Edem was humbled by the king's words. He bowed low and said, "Your Majesty, I am honored beyond measure. But for now, I must return to Ikot to tend to my trade. When the time is right, I will return." The king nodded, understanding Edem's humility and sense of duty. Imabong, now fully recovered, was more beautiful than ever. Her radiant glow returned, and she resumed her palace chores. However, her pride also returned. And though she was grateful to Edem for saving her life, she could not bring herself to consider him as her husband. One day, a prince named Emeka from the prosperous kingdom of Umudike visited Oron. When he saw Imabong, he was captivated by her beauty and immediately sought an audience with King Hefyong to express a desire to marry her. Imabong, seeing Emeka's royal attire and hearing tales of his wealth and status, felt her heart swell with excitement. Finally, she thought to herself, "My dream of marrying a prince has come true." Without hesitation, she accepted Emeka's marriage proposal. She told herself that this was the life she had always desired, ignoring the whispers of her conscience and the sacrifices Edem had made for her. When King Hefyong learned of her decision, he was deeply troubled. "I never agreed to such a promise. I am a princess, and it is only fitting that I marry a prince. Emeka is the husband I have always dreamed of, and I will not let anyone stand in my way." The king, seeing that his daughter's stubborn pride had returned, sent for Edem. When Edem arrived at the palace, King Hefyong pleaded with him, "Edem, my son, you have proven your worth beyond measure. Please speak to Imabong. Remind her of what you have done for her. Perhaps your words will soften her heart." Edem agreed, though his heart ached. When he met with Imabong, he spoke gently but firmly. "Imabong," he began, "I did not save your life because I expected anything in return. I did it because I cared for you, and I could not bear to see you suffer. But I must remind you that love and loyalty are more precious than titles and wealth. Prince Emeka may offer you a crown, but will he offer you the kind of devotion that I have shown?" Imabong turned away, her expression unreadable. "Edem," she said coldly, "I am grateful for what you did, but my heart belongs to Emeka now. I have made my decision." Disheartened, Emeka bowed and left the room. Though his heart was heavy, he knew he could not force Imabong to love him. The king, devastated by his daughter's stubbornness, wondered what fate would befall his kingdom if pride and ingratitude continued to guard her decision. The palace in Oron was abuzz with preparations for Princess Imabong's grand wedding to Prince Emeka. The villagers watched with mixed feelings, knowing of the sacrifices Edem had made for the princess and her unwavering pride. Imabong, dressed in luxurious silks, seemed to have regained her former confidence, but beneath the surface, she was uneasy. Just days before the wedding, her health took a sudden and alarming turn. She awoke one morning, feeling weak and feverish, her limbs heavy and her body racked with pain. By the afternoon, her condition had worsened. Her radiant beauty faded as her skin grew pale and clammy. Panic swept through the palace. The royal herbalist, after examining her, shook his head gravely. "Your Majesty," he said to the King Efong, "it seems the treatment was not completed. She requires the rest of the herb to recover fully." The king was baffled. Why wasn't she given the full dosage? The herbalist hesitated. It was on the advice of the healer, Malam Shehu. He instructed that only part of the herb be administered until it was certain the princess' heart had fully changed. Imabong's illness became the talk of the village. When word reached Emeka, a reaction was swift and unforgiving. "I cannot take her back to my family in Owerri in this state," he declared. "A sickly bride will bring shame to my kingdom." Without another word, Emeka left Oron, abandoning the wedding preparations and the princess. He didn't even say goodbye. The news of Emeka's rejection spread quickly, and Imabong's pride crumbled under the weight of humiliation. For the first time, she realized how shallow her dreams of marrying a prince had been. Her illness worsened, and when it came to the realization that she had only one hope left, Edem, Imabong sent her guards to seek Edem in Ikotopong. They knelt before him, pleading on her behalf. "Please," one of them said, "the princess is gravely ill. She needs the rest of the herb to survive." But Edem, though moved by their words, stood firm. The princess made her choice. She chose a prince over someone who loved her with his whole heart. Let her live with the consequences. When the guards returned with Edem's response, Imabong was devastated. Days passed, and her condition worsened until she could no longer bear the thought of her pride costing her life. With the last ounce of her strength, she resolved to visit Edem herself. Clad in a simple wrapper, her once glorious hair unkempt and her beauty reduced to a shadow of his former self, Imabong made the journey to Ikotopong. The villagers stared in shock at the sight of the proud princess, now humbled beyond recognition. When she got to Edem's workshop, she found him crafting an intricate gold necklace. He looked up, surprised to see her standing in his doorway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Edem," Imabong said weakly, tears streaming down her face, "I have come to ask for your forgiveness. I was blinded by pride, and in my foolishness, I hurt the one who truly cared for me. You saved my life once, and I threw it away for a dream that meant nothing. Please, Edem, help me. I beg you." Edem studied her, his expression unreadable. He saw the sincerity in her eyes and the weight of her regret. But he also remembered the pain of her rejection and the humiliation he endured. After a long silence, Edem rose to his feet. "Imabong," he said slowly, "I gave you a chance to heal, not just your body, but your heart. And yet, you chose your pride over love and gratitude. Now you ask me to save you again? Tell me, why should I trust that you have truly changed this time? Imabong fell to her knees, sobbing. Because I have nothing left. No pride, no praise, no beauty. All I have is regret and the hope that you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Edem stood there, torn between the hurt she had caused him and the love he once felt for her. He held her life in his hands, the final piece of the cure tucked away in his chest. Should Edem forgive Princess Imabong and give her the complete cure?